This particular topic is Chapter 9, and this is the pharmacy technician, and we're talking about compounding. And we're talking about compounding as it relates to aseptic compounding. And this is Chapter 9. In Chapter 10, we talked about sterile compounding. And there's some fundamental similarities and some fundamental differences that we will touch base upon. Okay, so let's get started. So basically, we wanted to talk about different uh, segments of compounding in general. What is it? What does it mean? The regulations surrounding compounding, the considerations to compound, what does it mean about the stability and beyond use dates, the type of equipment that are used in compound, using a balance, which is very, very important, volumetric equipment, and mixing solids and semi-solids. And then finally, we're going to touch upon different type of dosage forms that is involved in compounding. So you have something called extemporaneous compounding, and this is occurs when there is a need for a different formulation of a particular drug. For example, let's say that a particular pill comes in a 200 milligram dosage, but we have a particular patient that needs it as a 50 milligram dose. So, how do you go about making that particular change? Or it may need to go from a solid 50 milligrams in a tablet form to now 50 milligrams in a liquid form because the patient may not be able to swallow, and so a liquid formulation for that particular medicine may be best for a particular patient. This is done in accordance to a physician's prescription. So it's not that the pharmacy decides to make a difference in terms of how the medication is given to the patient. That has been done specifically by the physician. And it must meet the unique needs of the individual patient. Again, one of the best examples is having to create a liquid from a solid and making those particular changes. And sometimes, in many cases, that is done within a compounding pharmacy. And then you have the manufacturing. The production or processing of a drug in a large quantity is done by many different type of mechanisms. Tablets, if you look at certain videos for aspirin, for example, you can see that the process is basically a large conveyor belt and move very, very quickly. Other manufacturing is more time consuming and it has to be done in a smaller scale. There's some manufacturing plants that are large and huge because of the complexity of making that particular type of medicine and very, very costly. So depending on again the formulation of that particular drug or therapy will determine the manufacturing process. All right, so why do you compound? Well, there's several different reasons why compounding is very important. One, a pediatric patient requiring diluted adult drug, say you're going from 200 milligrams to now 50 milligrams, etc. Patient needing of oral solution or suspension of a product that's only available in another form. Again, a solid going to a liquid. That particular patient may not be able to swallow well. So having a tablet may not be very helpful. Patients' sensitivity to dyes, preservatives, and flavoring agents. And we talked about this before, that there are many things that are added to the prescription as fillers. And so if a patient is allergic to some of the fillers, some of the dyes, preservations, or flavoring agents, then that particular medicine has to be redone. You have dermatological formulation, and that could be strengthened, etc. Or you have diluted concentration of commercially available products. And so, again, that is done within a compounding pharmacy in many cases. There may be specialized dosages for therapeutic drug monitoring, and that is another reason why you would compound a particular drug. Care for a hospice patient in pain management. And when you're talking about hospice patients, we're talking about patients who are in a situation in which they are possibly about to die. They may have 6 months to live in a hospice facility. And so pain management is one that is necessary for that particular patient. And then there's also, veterinarian compounding for animals. Okay, so what is the standard? The standard was established in 1906 by the Pure Food and Drug Act. And so it is the federal authority that sets the standard. And so it has placed those particular type of standards within different type of chapters. And the published resource book is called the USPNF. USP standing for United States Pharmacopoeia, right? Formulary book and standards. Okay, so there's 60 chapters. Those particular chapters cover the different type of formulations that are necessary to make a drug, whether sterile, non-sterile, etc. And the chapters are many, 60 chapters. They are written by the federal government, and it is governed by the Food and Drug Administration. And then you have monographs. A monograph shows how a particular type of medication is supposed to prepare in practice. So this is one of the governing guidelines for prescriptions or therapies. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. The key chapters that you need to know, okay, if you don't remember any of the chapters, is chapter 795 and chapter 797. And 795 was added to the book, and this deals with pharmaceutical compounding or non-sterile preparations. Okay, and when you do compounding in many cases within a pharmacy, you may not necessarily use, for example, an laminar hood. And those particular formulations are still good when you're making gels, for example. And then, lotions or creams. And then in chapter 797, this is called pharmaceutical compounding and sterile preparation. And this became official in 2004. This is when you have particular products that have to be injected into the patient. And this includes, for example, steroids that's used for back pain. So those really need a very specific type of environment that can allow for the proper implementation of giving the proper medication the proper way to the patient. Other chapters talk about what type of containers the medication should be in. What are good compounding practices? When we talk about compounding practices, is maintaining a safe environment, maintaining a clean environment. If you need a sterile environment, what type of hoods can be used to do the compounding. Also, the different type of stability of a particular drug. Some drug can stay in room temperature for a day. Some may be a week. Some may be a month. Some may be a year. So it talks about what is included in terms of pharmaceutical stability. And then the dosage form. Am I giving 200 milligrams? Am I giving 300 milligrams per dose? Am I giving 10 milligrams? And that is actually determined by the pharmacy, not the pharmacy, the manufacturer of the drug, with oversight from the Food and Drug Administration. There are different type of regulations, and they cover all aspects of compounding. It's very, very important. There's going to be a video that will be shown, and it indicate a particular problem that occurred with a compounding facility, and because they didn't follow all of the regulations, that many individuals became sick, and some people actually died. So it applies to the type of personnel. We have to have a licensed pharmacy technician to do some of the compound, or individuals with even more type of education. It talks about the type of facilities. If it's a sterile compounding situation, the type of fume hoods, as I mentioned before, the type of equipment, which goes to the type of balances, the spatula, the beakers, that is necessary in order for the compounding. They have ingredient standards so that a particular drug is given to a particular patient or to many patients. They're all basically the same. And then you have what's the type of quality assurance and quality control. When you talk about quality assurance, what you're talking about is ensuring, I guess I'm kind of defining the word with the word, the quality of that particular medication. How well has it been prepared? And then the quality control. What type of documentations do you have that you have followed the procedures associated with quality assurance, that you have followed the procedures associated with the ingredient standards, that you have followed the prescription in terms of using the proper facilities and equipment, and those equipment is kept and calibrated. And then, of course, everything has to be documented in record keeping. And this is for the company, for the governing agencies, so that they can come in and look to see if there is a particular problem, how to deal with that particular problem in the making of this particular medication. A lot of times they can actually trace back to the manufacturing plant that made that particular medicine because of the documentation and record keeping. And that can save lives and can be very helpful in determining, who's at fault, for like a better way of saying it. All right, so when we talk about the ingredient standards, that is defined within that particular book that we have talked about. They is what they call the ACS, which stands for American Chemical Society. So if you're going to use a particular chemicals, it must be of the highest standard. You are using what they call analytical reagents that have a very high purity, and there's something called HPLC. Okay, also have to be a very high purity. And so I will come back and talk about what HPLC is in the next segment.